turning point for the emergence of a new Africa.
This week on Network Africa, it's all about defection, crisis, steps towards political solution, and paying respects to victims of the Holocaust. Welcome to the program. I'm Cynthia Are. And the defecting continues. The leader of the All Progressives Congress and former governor of Kano State, Ibrahim Shekarau, has defected to the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. The former presidential candidate of the All Nigeria People's Party, ANPP, in 2011 elections was also a founding member of the APC. Alongside his supporters, numbering in their thousands, Mr. Shekarau announced his decision at his residence in Kano, where they agreed to join forces with the PDP.
Based on the motion moved and adopted and accepted unanimously, we, the members of ANPP, of Kano State, are moving en masse, collectively, one and all, into the People's Democratic Party.
Now let's check out what's happening in the rest of Africa. He was accused of a coup plot and took to his heels. Then forces loyal to him came face to face with forces loyal to the president of South Sudan. And now he says the treason charges laid up against him and his allies are simply baseless. I'm talking about the former vice president of South Sudan, who is also the rebel leader, Riek Machar. Officials announced earlier on that 7 politicians were being charged over an alleged coup plot attempt in December. Mr. Machar, who is on the run, says he hopes his mediators in the crisis would ensure the release of 4 of his imprisoned allies, as that seems to be what is threatening the ceasefire at the moment. Now, speaking of ceasefire, it's been about a week since the ceasefire deal was signed in the world's youngest country. But the deal has not been honored, in that there is still a lot of fighting going on in parts of the country. Things are so bad that people are scared to return home and choose to remain in camps, waiting to see what happens.
This is what is left of South Sudan after over a month of conflict. Over 1,000 have been killed, thousands displaced, and lives changed forever. Unfortunately, despite a ceasefire agreement between the government of South Sudan and rebels led by former Vice President Riek Machar, fighting continues in parts of the world's youngest nation. However, Chief Government Negotiator Deng Nial Deng at the ceasefire talks in Ethiopia said the rebels are still on a recruitment drive.
Rebel forces are made up of 2 components. There are people SPLA personnel who have defected to the rebel side. But the bulk of that army is made up of civilians that Riek Machar has recruited and actually continues to recruit. And that poses a very serious challenge to the agreement on the cessation of hostilities actually holding.
Last Thursday's agreement in neighboring Ethiopia allowed for a 24-hour window for the ceasefire to take effect, meaning any clashes would not be in violation of the accord, which took almost 3 weeks to negotiate. But reports of continuing conflict reflect the deep distrust between troops loyal to President of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, and rebel fighters, including those loyal to Machar, as well as more autonomous groups. The UN Emergency Relief Coordinator, Valerie Amos, on Tuesday visited a protection camp for people escaping violence in South Sudan, amid concerns over a growing humanitarian crisis.
We will have to guarantee people's security, and I think even that is not going to be enough. When I talked to people, they said that they had completely lost faith. They actually wanted to leave altogether and either go to other parts of South Sudan or leave the country. And even when I said we need to work on reconciliation, we need all the communities to come together, the leadership to come together, we need to make sure that people's safety and security is guaranteed. Even then, people were not convinced.
Amos visited a teaching hospital as well as the UN mission bases, where an estimated 27,000 people are taking shelter. Health workers at the clinic say they are trying to address the medical needs they can for displaced communities. South Sudan's government and rebel troops signed a deal last week to end a month of fighting, but many displaced citizens are still not sure what this really means for them, and they are watching the situation first before they decide on whether it is safe to return home.
Now, in order to be double sure about which side is violating the ceasefire deal, I spoke with a friend who is the SPLA spokesperson, and here's what he had to say. Could you tell me what's happening in South Sudan since the ceasefire?
Since the ceasefire, there have been some violations by the groups of rebels. Up to the day before yesterday, there had been fighting in 3 locations. In 1 location in Jonglei and 2 locations in Upper Nile. But from yesterday up to this morning, the situation is calm. Whether they have stopped because of ceasefire or they are tired of attacking, we don't know. But ceasefire lacked a mechanism for monitoring and verification. So whenever there is a ceasefire, there must be a monitoring body. That is lacking in this case.
So there is no monitoring body in this case?
No.
Okay, that's why there have been violations of the ceasefire.
Yeah, the rebels are violating and they are accusing us in the media, and nobody could verify it. It's them attacking the SPLA, and we took the international media to a place called Matiang that they attacked almost 6 times since the signing of the ceasefire or cessation of hostilities.
So that's the situation in Boa and Jonglei?
Yeah, that is this 40 kilometers north of Boa town.
All right.
But from the last fighting, that is on the 27th, from 28th up to now, the situation is quiet.
We do hope that calm and peace returns to South Sudan, but for now, let's check out what's happening in another country which is on the verge of a genocide. That's if we're to go by the predictions of the United Nations. I'm talking about the Central African Republic. The United Nations is of the opinion that if the least bit of calm is to be restored to the CAR, that would come at the price of 10,000 troops. The French UN envoy ambassador Gerard Araud described the situation in CAR as dreadful. His comments come not too long after the UN Security Council approved a motion which permits European troops to use force in the CAR. About 1 million people have fled their homes during months of religious violence after rebels seized power last March.
Almost 1 million people, which is about a quarter of the population, have been displaced by fighting since the mostly Muslim Seleka rebel group seized power in March last year in the majority Christian country. At least 2,000 people are estimated to have been killed. The United Nations has warned that the conflict is at the risk of escalating into genocide.
The stakes are extremely high. It has, it has all the elements that we have seen elsewhere in places like Rwanda and Bosnia. The human side is a big tragedy, a mega tragedy, in fact, on the global scale, because it's unnecessary suffering. And it's escalating again at a very fast pace.
In order to prevent the situation from getting to that point, France sent 1,600 troops to Central African Republic last month to assist some 5,000 African Union peacekeepers, while the European Union agreed last week to send about 500 troops. French UN Ambassador Gerard Araud says the European troops will take over from French forces, protecting some 100,000 internally displaced people who have sought refuge at the airport in the Central African Republic's capital of Bangui.
We really do need the arrival of the European forces, because our contingent for the moment has been largely committed to the protection of the 100,000 IDP who have taken refuge on the airport.
It was unclear, however, as to which European countries will contribute troops or when they would arrive in the country. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is due to report to the Security Council next month on options for a likely UN force within 6 months. Some Western diplomats and UN officials say the African Union is looking to try to stop the fighting within a year. Interim President Catherine Samba-Panza, elected by a transitional assembly last week, has pledged to open talks with armed groups and take the country to elections, scheduled to be held by early next year. She has also called for more international troops to be deployed.
Let's speak with Nadia Dipsy of the ICRC, who is in the capital, Bangui, to fill us in on the humanitarian situation there.
Well, I would say that the capital, Bangui, the security situation is very precarious. There's a lot of shooting in the last few days in the capital itself. So this is obviously a major concern for us, because this means that it affects the activities that we're able to do. But we are continuing our activities in Bangui. In the last week, we've continued evacuating injured persons towards the hospital, the main hospital in Bangui, and where we have a surgical team that's been working since the beginning of January. So we've transported since the 23rd of January about 26 people. And some of these people were from the west of Bangui. So we have been continuing that. So a surgeon is also working in the hospital on operating on these persons and providing first aid to these people. So that's the main situation from the health perspective. We also work with the Central African Red Cross.
We take a quick break now, and when we return, 20 journalists face trial in Egypt. Don't go away.